find out?
That'd be
It
better.
runs to 8 o'clock.
What?
It runs to 8 o'clock. So I don't know where I am. I'm
Oh, well, I'm just gonna make it.
no. Yeah.
Right. Can those people who are attending remotely have their microphones on mute, please? Otherwise, we won't be able to hear what we're thinking or saying. Right. Welcome everybody to the Joint Transportation Board, and welcome to those that are physically here and to those that are joining us via the internet. Just a few briefing notes or notes, procedural notes. Obviously, anybody who's got any mobile phones, please turn them off or turn them to silent. Any remote participants to keep their cameras and microphones off unless they wish to speak, and ideally not use the camera facility at all, as this can affect the quality of the meeting. The meeting will be recorded and data collected during the recording of the meeting, and it will be retained in accordance with the Council's data retention policy. The recording of the meeting may be added to the Council's website. Members accessing the meeting remotely should use their SBC or KCC laptop to participate virtually. If you join using the link on the website or on a mobile and tablet device, it is not always possible to identify you, and you may not be recorded as a remote attendance. Members, if you could speak loudly and clearly into the microphones and to switch their microphones off after speaking, otherwise remote participants may be unable to hear the next speaker. Obviously, welcome to everybody to this hybrid meeting of the Joint Transportation Board. Just to advise everybody that Councillor Richard Palmer has replaced Councillor James Hall on the board. And Councillor Palmer is now not the Calc replacement as stated on the agenda, and we will be advised of the third Calc member after the meeting on the 12th of December 23. The following staff hopefully are in attendance. Can't read the names underneath the screen, but they are attending remotely, and that's Swell District Manager from KCC, Alan Blackburn, the Seafront and Engineer Manager, Mike Knowles, Project Manager, Major Capital Programme, KCC, Richard Shelton, Project Manager, National Highways, Daniel Rollison. Yes. And here physically we have Democratic Services Officer Philippa Davis. Are there any other officers in attendance that I'm not aware of? I can't hear anything or see any hands, so that is the full list. There are no fire drills planned for this evening, but so if the alarm does sound, those in attendance should leave via the exits indicated and assemble outside where directed. Do not use the lift. Please ask that if anyone in attendance requires extra assistance to make themselves known. Does anybody require assistance? Looking around, no. Are there any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. Apologies have been received from Councillor Simon Clark, who is actually attending remotely this evening, from Councillor Richard Palmer, from Kent County Councillors, Councillor Mike Baldock, Anthony Hook, Rich Lehman, and also Kent County Councillor Andy Booth. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And I presume there aren't any substitutes for those.
That's correct. No substitutes.
Right. Okay, I presume everybody's had a chance to read the minutes of the last Joint Transportation Board held on the 2nd of October 2023. Can I sign those as a correct and accurate record of the meeting? No dissenters from the internet. I can't see any hands, so I shall duly sign. Right, now we can move into the meeting. Any declarations of interest? Nobody's raising any hands and no hands being raised on the internet. Okay, right. Moving on then. Item 5, public session. We have no registered speakers, I am informed. There was going to be a petition, but I believe it hasn't been quite completed. And they tell me that they hope to bring it to the meeting next time, which I believe our next meeting is in March of next year. Right, the first section on the agenda is part 1, reports for a recommendation to Swale Borough Council's Policy and Resources Committee. And that brings us into item 6, formal objections to traffic regulation orders, Swale amendment. So I presume, Mike Knowles, that's over to you to introduce this item. Mike.
Thank you, Chair, and good evening, members. Yes, this is a brief report following the advertising of a traffic regulation order for a proposed loading bay in Victoria Street, Sheerness. The traffic order was funded by the applicant of the convenience store, which is due to open shortly, I understand. And during the formal consultation period, we received a total of 6 objections, one of those being from the ward member, and our officer recommendation to the board is therefore that the proposed loading bay be abandoned. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My comments are in the report. There is no point repeating them. I would like to move the recommendation that the proposed loading bay in Victoria Street, Sheerness, be abandoned. Thank you.
Anybody else wish to speak? Okay. Oh, Councillor McDonald.
If I can, I do see possibilities of some difficulties because I know there's not much parking around and the people that have objected don't live at 33 or 35, which is apparently going to be the shop. So how on earth is somebody going to run a business, which is obviously a taxpayer? How are they going to run it? I don't know the applicant or, you know, the reasoning, but if they're unloading vans and things like that, it's pretty selfish if people park outside their shop so they can't do it. Thank you.
Councillor Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I put in my comments to the proposed TRO, there has been some form of retail in this position for at least 30 years, to my knowledge. There has never been a suggestion that the space outside be blocked off. So having retail having been there for quite a number of years, and there was until quite recently, I repeat, I move the recommendation. This is unfair to the people in the neighbourhood if somebody all of a sudden after 30, 40 years of retail being in that exact position and not requiring one, now suddenly decides that they do. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Harrison. Can I just ask the officer whether there is an accident crash record in this particular spot?
Thank you, Chair. To my knowledge, there isn't. We would normally look at the crash history, obviously, if there was the consideration of double yellow lines, but in the case of a loading bay, we haven't looked into that, but I'm not aware of anything in particular at this location. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Whiting.
Thank you, Chair. I won't take any more time, but I forgot to reserve my right as a seconder. Just to concur with what Councillor Harrison has said regarding the use of the building for decades, and to actually, as you say, block this off now, if it's loading only, it would therefore prevent people who actually wanted to visit the business for some other reason than loading, presumably. And that in itself pushes a parking problem further down the road. So no, I will be voting against with the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Right, I have no other speakers. I have a proposer and a seconder to recommend the officer's recommendation. Can I have a show of hands for those that agree with that? I presume we don't take any votes from people from outside, do we? No. Right. Okay, that is carried. Okay. Thank you. Right. Moving on. The floor is now over to you, Peter.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, very, very quickly. I consider, with my considerable transport experience, that the conditions on developers and utility companies should be really tightened. We all see and loads of complaints from people. Say a utility says, "Oh, this is an emergency. We need to go in." Fine, emergency. But it doesn't then take a week. They give them so many days. It doesn't take them a week to reinstate, but you just see the same old thing all the time. And the place is everywhere. It doesn't matter where it is. It's not just Sheppey. It's the mainland as well. And I used to do roadworks many years ago, and we had to deal with them very quickly. And I can take you to roads where I put drains in and things like that. Never subsided because the job was done properly. I think one or two utilities are actually extracting the Michael, because if you look at some of the repairs that highways have to do, it's very often because the utilities have done a bit of a slapdash job. Looks all very nice. These days, they don't seem to want to use heat, which if you're putting tarmac down, I know you can use chemicals, but you need the repair to adhere to the existing road surface.
Peter, can I ask what the recommendation will actually be to Kent County Council?
Well, I think to tighten up on the timing and tighten up on the quality of some of the reinstatement.
Right. So
Yeah.
Conditions of the and can I just say that the cabinet member at Kent County Council is looking very specifically already at utility companies that are doing a lot of works under the emergency banner when actually they're not emergency.
Yeah.
And so that is going to be tightened up quite severely, one hopes.
Yeah.
And that is in the pipeline.
Yeah, I don't blame our officers at all.
But it is something that is very much on Kent County Council's radar. Would Alan Blackburn like to comment on that?
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. Well, you sort of beat me to it, really. I was just going to mention that Neil Baker had a presentation to us only a few days ago at one of the parish seminars, and those of you, I guess quite a few of you who were at the parish seminar, said that he had sort of made it a mission of his to try and tackle this business of utilities going in under emergency works. And I'm sure most of you heard that around 30% of the works that we see carried out by the utilities go under that flag of emergency works. As we said at the last meeting, it is very tricky to work out exactly what's happening on the site sometimes. Testing of things like gas mains can go on for a couple of days where they power up with a full gas pressure in there and then have to leave it a certain amount of time before they're allowed to backfill it. So it is a bit tricky sometimes. It can look as though there's nothing happening at all for a complete 24 hours or more while they're testing. There are things like that go on, but please rest assured, as you've already mentioned, it is the intention that that's looked at fairly soon by Councillor Baker. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Whiting.
Forgive me, Chairman, if I'm sounding a little confused. I can't see anything in the agenda about this at all, other than on the printed agenda I've got that says Part 2, Item 7, conditions on developers and utility companies. There doesn't appear to be a report that I can see, and there's no recommendation I can see. So I wonder how legally we can kind of discuss this without it being published first. But
it was a question that I asked. Obviously, the agenda was. Unfortunately, I don't think I was able to attend fully the last chairman's briefing that it was accepted. So this item was accepted by the chairman. He is online. Whether he wants to say anything or not. Simon Clark.
I don't think my voice could hold out, Chairman, so I'll make no comment at this time. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. If I can just follow up on that then, Chairman, I've no object. I mean, I think, we need to put all the pressure we can on utility companies, to do the works in a timely fashion and get the works finished on time and the roads reopened. But we also need to ensure they get them repaired properly, resurfaced properly in such a way that 2 years down the line, we aren't having to send KCC staff and KCC funding, public money, to go and repair what should have been done properly in the first instance. I do understand, and perhaps Mr. Blackburn can put me straight on this, that the 2-year guarantee that used to exist on road repairs, so that if the council brought an action against a utility because a repair failed before 2 years was up, before that guarantee, they would have to come back and do it for free. I think that's been extended to 5 years in law now, which I think that's the case, but perhaps Mr. Blackburn can. But again, I go back to the point, I'm happy to discuss this, but it's not really on the agenda. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Ms. Blackburn, did you want to clarify the timing before I go?
I can just clarify that. Councillor Whiting is quite correct in that it was changed fairly recently, but it's always been depth related. So I think it used to be depth related up to 3 years, and I think they changed it and extended it. So the deeper stuff now is 5 years, because obviously there's a lot more work involved in it. So the really shallow repairs that you see, they might only be 2 years, but as you go deeper, then the guarantee period increases. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Harrison.
I'm with Councillor Whiting here. Sorry. It was just a heading, and I thought, oh, that could be about that, or that could be about that. But what's the ultimate aim of it? So,
well, we could propose that the Kent County Council cabinet member, Mr. Neil Baker, carries on with the good work in terms of utilities. But I don't think you want that to go through, would you?
No, well, he might well be doing some good work, mightn't he? I just don't know, but it might be worth actually having a report back to the JTB in the not too distant on how he's getting on.
And one would hope.
And my other comment was that probably that's now changed to 5 years. The utilities, and I concur about this business, everything's an emergency. I get things which say, in 3 months' time, we're shutting a road in your ward as an emergency. How can it be an emergency if you give me 3 months' notice? Emergency is you're coming out in the middle of the night. They've really stretched it. So I agree that he needs to go on with this. My point is that over the years, we've been told that the utilities have up to 2 years, now probably up to 5, to properly reinstate, because some of the block paving in the old GIA in Marinetown, General Improvement Area, they chuck a bit of tarmac down. Now, if nobody remembers who did it in 18 months' time, how are you going to chase them up? And that did seem to be part of the issue at the time, that there wasn't a proper record of who was digging up the roads. Hopefully now there are mega databases that can pinpoint to the inch who it was that dug it up, because I agree, you know, KCC having to come back and do a proper job is us paying twice because we're all paying for the utilities. So that proper reinstatement bit needs to be monitored maybe a bit more effectively. But I support, let's have a report back when he's made some progress. Thanks.
No, thank you for that. Councillor Tutt.
Thank you, Chair. Could I suggest that we put this on the March agenda to encompass both utility companies and KCC's repairs? Because quite honestly, a lot of those go wrong within 6 to 8 weeks after they've whacked a bit of tarmac in. So
Well,
we need to look at all of it. So it needs to be a proper agenda.
Obviously, it will be subject to the agenda setting, but one would hope that we could make a note that we would require an update, certainly on the KCC's cabinet members' changes to highways legislation and how we work with utilities. And it would also be useful to know where hopefully some of the extra money from central government, how that's going to be spent as well. If you agree to that, we can. Sorry.
So the other issue, I was wondering whether we could have any statistics on the frequency with which repairs are being needed at the moment, because I certainly have heard suggested that the number of leaks that are appearing is related to the pressure that the water companies are having to use to supply everywhere, and whether that frequency of leakage and therefore repairs is going up, and whether there are any statistics around that that would help us to would inform what's going on, whether that could be incorporated in a report.
The information is probably there, but it would probably be sit with the water utility company, probably, and where their old pipe work is. But you're quite right. Obviously, the water is certainly in the summer when people use a lot more, the pressure is increased, and that's when you usually find all the bursts. Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll be extremely brief. I totally agree with everything that the other councillors have said. I'd like to thank Councillor McDonald for bringing this up to this committee. We think we do need to have this at our next meeting, if only to put the pressure on the utility companies. I agree with Councillor Good. It has to be all of them, including the water companies as well. Put them on account, make them realise that we are put them on notice, so to speak. Not only that, it would also benefit KCC for when they need to shout at them as well. If we've got a report that's in front of us that's there, that we can, with the statistics to back it up. So it's all good. So I think definitely for March's agenda.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's all being noted. I mean, certainly with the amount of roadworks that there are around at the moment, one can, when the question's asked why productivity in the UK has dropped, one can answer, well, it's sitting on in a traffic jam somewhere. So at that point, I'm going to leave it.
Sorry, Chair. Just.
Oh, sorry, does he? Right. Mr. Blackburn, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to raise one thing, really. I have made a note of the points that you've just mentioned there, and I'll do what I can to try and talk to the team and obviously to Neil Baker's team. We'll try and do what we can for the next meeting. The point I was going to raise was I quite often get asked about record keeping. Although I don't work in the Streetworks team, I quite often get asked, how was that information stored, and is it accessible after the event and everything? I just wanted to draw people's attention to the One Network website. So if you go to KCC's website and type in utilities or reinstatements or whatever you want to put in, that takes you to the Streetworks team. There's a link on there to a site called One Network. It's a countrywide system. But obviously we just have access to the Kent section. If you are unsure as to who has put signs out or who has started digging the road up or anything like that, I would urge you to take a look at it. It's really useful. It's as up to date as it can be, bearing in mind that 30% of it's emergency work, so it'll never be completely accurate because there are always emergency works out there, but definitely worth a look. And that information is stored for a good number of years afterwards. So it's much better than systems that we've had up to, say, 2 years ago, when it's been drastically improved a couple of years ago. The record keeping is good, so we are able to tell who carried out works in a previous site. But if you as members get asked about a particular bit of work, it's definitely a first port of call, because it's really quite handy to all of us, and we all use it every day. So I just thought I'd make you aware of it. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you for that. Right. Okay. Having noted that, and sorry.
Just to ask, do you need a formal recommendation for this to go forward, or have this discussion?
No, that's
okay.
No, that's fine. It'll be through the chair. Thank you for that. Right, moving on. Agenda item 8, we have a verbal update from National Highways, and I believe we have Daniel Rollinson, who is going to update us on the Junction 5. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me. Just a quick one then, really. Since the last JTV, so work continues to progress really well on site. Obviously, the weather hasn't been too kind to us, shall we say, in the last couple of months. However, we've managed to work around it without any kind of slippage to our program. So we're still maintaining our end date of winter next year, with the aim of having the flyover taking traffic by the summer of next year. We had a weekend closure in mid-November to switch the traffic onto the new roundabout, which was a big milestone for us. So anybody who's driven through in the last sort of 3 or 4 weeks will see that they're now on the larger roundabout. By doing that, it's allowed us access to the centre of the roundabout to conduct the works there and put in place the retaining walls in the centre of the roundabout, which has started sort of last week and will continue now up until Christmas. The retaining walls on the north of the roundabout are almost finished. I think we've got maybe 10 panels to put in, and then we've obviously got to do the fill and build the road up and etc. from there. But that continues to make really good progress. We were due to have a weekend closure, and the weekend just gone, but we cancelled that. We don't have any closures now until between now and Christmas. Some good news: the lane closure that we currently have on the south side of the roundabout, travelling south towards Maidstone, we've managed to do some temporary works design which will allow us to lift that lane closure for Christmas. So the week commencing the 18th, hopefully on the 18th, but it depends on contractor availability. But definitely that week we will be able to lift that lane closure for Christmas, which will allow the full capacity of traffic through there over the Christmas period, and then we will put the lane closure back on after the new year. Likewise, the Churchill crossover into Stockbury, that will be opening during at the same time, and that will stay open now, possibly into the spring when we have to do a little bit more work there. So that's generally it. Like I said, we're just kind of working around the poor weather at the moment, but just working hard and lead up to Christmas. The site will close for Christmas on the 22nd and then reopen in the new year. But happy to take any specific questions.
I haven't seen anybody indicate, but all I would like to say is that certainly it seems on Facebook and other websites that the publication of information as regards what's happening at the roundabout seems to have improved dramatically, which does ease people's tensions when they're sitting in a long line of traffic. So I would congratulate you on that, that's much improved, and it should be continued whenever you do major works such as that. Certainly the aerial shots and maps are very useful for people as well. So thank you for that. I don't suppose you have, as you're working on the actual project itself. Any further information as regards the rat running that's still occurring in rural roads, and obviously the connectivity between Stockbury west to Stockbury east, that is still, obviously now there is a no access point going across the A249, and there was talk of a footbridge stroke agricultural bridge going across the A249. Do you have any information on that?
No, I think I may have had an update but previously, it's probably about a year ago now, we did look into the feasibility of a footbridge, or well, a non-motorized bridge, so cyclists and equestrian as well. But we were unable to gather enough support to really to take it from feasibility into design. With the problem when you're putting a footbridge into a place where there isn't one currently is you have to prove the need for it. Because obviously there's no historic data because it's not a crossing point, so you have to prove a need for it. And we got some support, but unfortunately we weren't able to gather enough support from Stockbury itself, and with a prime reason for it would have been to connect Stockbury. Without support from Stockbury itself, it wasn't able to be progressed, unfortunately. So there's not really anything on that one. The road bridge obviously has a history of that. That got sort of paused by DFT, really, so there's no change on that one. As far as I'm aware, there's no change, so that's not going to go ahead. But yeah, no, like I said, nothing else really.
Thank you for that. I'll just briefly come back on that. Obviously, if the data wasn't gathered prior to blocking the road off, you'd have been able to have got the data, and it was extensively used. But obviously, now when there is the difficulty, and obviously Stockbury now want a full-blown traffic bridge, hence they're holding out for that rather than just a pedestrian bridge. It makes it very difficult, and it sounds like they've called DFT's bluff and they're going to get nothing now, which really is detrimental to the North Downs and accessibility to the North Downs, which I find very, very sad indeed, and probably not very good in terms of the Department of Transport and the way it treats local residents. Accessibility to countryside, etc., is a major policy for DFE and Highways England, and you've completely railroaded the local residents. So I find it. I hear what you say, and I'm sure you're not responsible for it, but the decision made is a very poor one. I have Mike Whiting, and then I have Peter.
So, thank you, Chairman. I see that Simon's got his hand up as well.
Oh, right.
Perhaps his voice has returned, hopefully. 3 points, if I may make them. First, I just agree with you. I completely agree with you, Chairman, on the comms thing. I think the comms coming out of the works and National Highways have improved. It certainly meant I've seen fewer complaints in my inbox because people are now aware of what's going on and aren't having necessarily come to their elected representatives to find out, which is good news. I was also pleased over the weekend to see that the weekend working continues apace on the flyover. It's something perhaps we could learn when we come to talk on the next item to get more of that going on. But that's I'd congratulate Dan. I know he's desperate to keep the timetable, and I think he is. And certainly I would imagine the weekend working is helping with that. And it is encouraging when you sit in a traffic jam for 20 minutes and you get to the front of the queue, to see no one working is disheartening and makes your blood boil. To see tractors and diggers and lots of people on site, all with their flashing lights working hard, kind of takes away some of that pain. So I'm very grateful that National Highways seem to have a weekend working policy, which is good. And one of the things that's not good, that is causing longer delays than ever, is the traffic light system. I understand that since they've put the roundabout back in place following a closure, they've reinstated the traffic lights, which now, even out of rush hour, cause queues that can easily reach a mile long, and certainly in the morning will go back past the Key Street roundabout. And much of this is caused by the traffic lights. And if you can you sit there and they go red, and 2 cars will go through round the roundabout. They'll go green, and 50 cars will try and get through before the traffic lights go red again to allow the next 1 or 2 cars to come through. So I wonder whether there's anything Dan can do to adjust the lights such that more priority is given, more green time is given to the dual carriageway. Thank you, Chair.
I have Peter, and then I have Simon and Angela.
Yes, sorry, I'll dip out from this. Thank you.
Okay, Simon.
Thank you, Chair. Just a brief one. It's the old perennial that I've got to be in front of you when we're in a queue coming down towards any sort of roadworks. I refer to travelling northbound from Maidstone towards the junction at the M2, especially during peak time. I don't know if there's anything Dan can do, because you've got the 2 separate lanes there, the right-hand lane for going straight on towards Sittingbourne, and the left for basically going up onto the M2 slip road. But there's very little signage any distance back from that junction to inform motorists that they should be getting into a specific lane. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Daniel.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I'll come back on some of those points. So first of all, thank you for the feedback on the communications. I'll pass that on to our comms team and let those guys know, and we'll keep at that. So that's good to hear. Same with the weekend working. I can't remember the last time we didn't work a weekend, even if it's just some enabling works we do for the larger work in the week. And yeah, as you rightly point out, is we do the weekend working to help maintain our programme, especially during periods when we're having the poor weather. We then use the weekends to catch up where we've lost the productivity in the week. So that will continue. Our priority is maintaining the end date. So yeah, that will continue to the new year. The phasing of the traffic lights on the southbound approach. So it's a difficult one. The reason that the traffic is particularly bad is because of the lane closure on the south side of the roundabout. Essentially as vehicles are giving way to people coming out of Oak Street, it means that that's slower than it should be, and therefore the full amount of vehicles are not making it through the traffic lights during each phase. We've spent a lot of work on the traffic lights, looking at the different phasing of it. The issue is that the M2 slip road, sort of London bound slip road as you're coming off, because it has much less capacity in terms of queuing vehicles. We have to give more priority to that, specifically during peak times, to limit the amount of traffic that queues up onto the motorway, because that's particularly, it can be particularly dangerous. But we have phased it so during off peak the phasing changes to give more time to the A249. We obviously, since the roundabout has changed, once we take off the lane closure on the week of the 18th, we'll then do a further study of the traffic lights to understand how the roundabout works without the lane closure in, and then we'll adjust the lights as necessary. But it is a constant. It is constantly being looked at, and we do study the specific phasing and tweak it where we can. But we do appreciate that the queues are the queues are quite lengthy, especially during peak times on the A249, and we will keep it under consideration. For the northbound traffic on the signage, we do have essentially they're a little bit like secret shoppers. So every month we have a drive-through audit that comes, and they do look at sort of signage and things like that. We have been scoring really highly on it. But you know, we have had a couple pick up on signage, and it is something we're looking at. So we will look at that. I think, unfortunately, particularly traveling northbound, a lot of people do know they're meant to be in the right hand lane, but they choose to go up the left hand lane because it gains them advantage, and then they try and cut in towards a roundabout to avoid the queues. I think a lot of it is driver behaviour. But I take that point on board, and we will look at it.
Thank you, Angela.
Thank you. Most of the problems on the road are driver behaviour. We had this when the new bridge was being built. Now, generally, I think under the law, it's 1 mile, 800 yards, 600, 400, 200. Now, you're not telling me that you're so blind that you're missing the mile, the 800, the 600, the 400, the 200. No, you're not. You're pig ignorant. That is what the problem is. Dan, you asked for specific questions, so I'm going to give you a specific question. I'm going to Maidstone this week, Wednesday and Sunday, as it happened. Am I going to have a problem getting through from Sheerness? Roughly how long do you think it's going to take me?
It's going to depend what time of day you're travelling. I mean,
Wednesday, I've got to be over there at 2 o'clock.
I think if you travel,
sorry, go on. Sunday, Maidstone Hospital for 11.
Yeah. Okay. So we don't have any closures on for the weekend. So there won't be anything that stops you doing the journey. So it will just be the sort of regular traffic, which won't be as bad on Sunday. So I wouldn't anticipate too much of a hold up. The Wednesday, again, it's in the afternoon, so off peak. You will experience delays on the A249 southbound, traveling straight on. So you could probably experience delays there of maybe up to sort of 15, 20 minutes, possibly on top of your normal travel time. But then once you're at the roundabout, you should be clear from there.
Thank you for that. Obviously, you'll be late home for tea. Peter.
Yeah, very quickly. Thank you very much, Chairman. Yeah, with regard to the Stockbury access, some of us who are old will remember that when the A249 was dualled, now I know it's not the Department of Transport, it was KCC, down the bottom of Detling Hill, they wouldn't put a crossing in. And some poor girl was actually, and her grandma, I think, were killed. Yes, that's right. So they had to put a crossing in the end. So when people are doing the negotiations, I think that should be flagged up because there's an awful lot of traffic and it's moving fast.
Thank you for that, Peter. Can I ask Alan Blackburn to briefly comment on the rural roads around Junction 5, because the roads there, particularly the verges, are particularly bad at the moment, with where the road runs out and people have been trying to get through single carriage roads side by side. They've egressed onto the verge, and now there are 5, 6, 7-inch holes plus on the edge of the roads. Can I ask when these are going to be? Well, really, it needs routine maintenance because as soon as you put anything in, it comes out again. Is there a weekly schedule that KCC is going around filling in these verge holes? Alan.
We've had a good go at this under Pothole Blitz this year, but we have really only had the cash to tackle the road surfaces themselves and the verges. Yeah, we have done some work. We've used planings from old sites and then topsoiled over the planings. We've used on some of them bits of chalk, and we've tried a number of different ways to try and fill the verges in, but it is really, really difficult to try and keep those verges in good condition. And at the moment, we struggle to do it, and we spend what money we do have on the road surfaces themselves. Yeah, if you see ones that are particularly deep, and members of the public do from time to time point us to sort of certain sections on the insides of bends and things that are particularly bad, we do fill them in with stone and we do topsoil over them. But yeah, they're pretty few and far between.
I can mention one that's along the Lower Hartlip Road. There have been cones there for probably about 6 months now, and it's not been filled in, and that's just up or opposite Turnpike, up from along the Lower Hartley Road from the Tuck In. But is there a rolling inspection of those rural roads? Because, you know, you might be putting tarmac, etc. in, but it gets washed out very quickly.
Yeah, we do inspect the roads on a regular basis. We have statutory inspections, so inspections that we can't miss, but only 12 months apart generally, which means that a lot of damage gets done in that 12 months or so. So most of the time we react to calls from members of the public rather than a statutory pair of highways inspectors that do a driven inspection. Yeah, we do them, we do fill them, but they're pretty few and far between in comparison with works on the carriageway itself. Most of the time we only react to safety critical issues and restrict ourselves to the hard surface itself most of the time.
Right, thank you for that, Alan. But I would suggest that who would be liable for car damage on the edge of the roads?
Most of the cases that we have are related to claims on the road. I can't remember the last time we had one that was claims where it was a muddy verge and somebody had damaged the car by driving off the edge of the road. That we hadn't reacted to. So generally, if it's pointed out to us and we think there's a possibility of damage there, then we will go out there and at least try and top it up with something. But as you said a minute ago, most of the time you're doing that work to make it safe, to keep it safe. You're actually carrying that work out when the road itself is quite wet, and it doesn't last terribly long. So you need to go back in the summer and do a repair on it when the weather's a bit more conducive to doing something there that will stand the test of time. But in terms of insurance, we do look after an awful lot of road. I shouldn't say, touching wood, we get very few claims that are related to somebody actually driving on the verge and maybe getting stuck on the verge like that.
Well, it all depends whether KCC points the claimant to the private landowner. Is that the case?
Most of the time, the verge itself that you look at least 900 millimeters or so, a yard as it was from the edge of the metal surface of the road. In most occasions, most of that is not the private landowner. It's deemed to be highway, because if you look at a cross section of the road, the actual formation of the road, not the blacktop, but the stone that's under it, does extend beyond the edge of the metal bitumen surface. So it will. The stone that's under it, the construction of the road, what's deemed to be the road, will be 2 foot or so back from the edge of the blacktop.
I disagree with that, but there wouldn't be a hole there on the edge of the road if there was stone there.
The stone is lower. The stone is much lower. It's a foot or so lower than the what you see as the blacktop.
Certainly in rural roads, there have been fences I know that have been actually right by the side of the road, and because of it being pushed over by the weight of the earth and traffic moving it, it actually egresses onto private land. But I'm not going to have that discussion now. We'll have that another time. Right, can we move on to the next agenda item? And I believe it's Richard that is here to update us on the Grove House roundabout.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Chairman. Richard Shelton, Kent County Council. Just Grovehurst roundabout and the work's going on at Grovehurst, and I'll also pick up on Key Street just on the design phase of that. Grovehurst Road, we have completed now the 95% of all the vegetation clearance that we were due to be completed, and we've also dealt with all the ecological constraints that we had. That's not to say that we won't have breeding birds come back into the area again next year when we're on site, but we've dealt with all the reptiles, the water voles, etc. So that was all time critical work, the ecological, so that's now been completed. Construction works are progressing with the piling to the north abutment of the bridge. Traffic management remains on the northbound carriageway to enable these works to be completed safely. The works to the southbound carriageway and the southbound abutment were taken off on completion of the ecological and the time-sensitive work, and the seasonal sensitive work. We looked at the programme with Jackson's and we identified that whilst they had work programmed, it wasn't consistent, and that we would take the traffic management off and review the traffic management that we had on that southbound carriageway. We're currently talking with National Highways. Having taken the traffic management off, we've come up with two alternatives. We seem to have, having previously been advised that we needed to go all the way back to Cowsted Corner. We now have two alternatives, one with a similar 2 lanes to 1, but starts south of the Sheppey crossing. We've managed to overcome the supposed issues that we had with non-compliance with standards. That is with National Highways at the moment for discussion. We have also put forward a proposal to keep 2 lanes running, with lane 2 going past the bridge at Grovehurst Road, and lane 1 being permanently diverted up the slip road, so technically keeping two lanes of traffic through the junction, although there would be one using the slip road, which would benefit those wanting to get to Sheppey Way and Swell Way, and round to Kemsley. It would also allow people to go up and over if they got in the wrong lane. We've done risk assessments on both of those. Unfortunately for me, the risk assessment for the latter is coming up, or is being demonstrated as being a riskier solution, primarily because of speeds, potential speeds, and traffic hitting crash cushions, or the nosing that we would need to put in to put the diverge in for the lane 1 traffic to go up and down the slip road. We're currently still working with National Highways on agreeing which of these 2 options is best to put out, and I'll be in a position to advise you or give an update on that, hopefully sometime towards the end of this week or the middle of next. So that's really where we're at with that one. The intention is we're currently planning to come back and put the southbound traffic management out from the 8th of January. Again, details of that still need to be confirmed and fixed with the relevant street works and permit teams. So that's really where we're at with Grovehurst Road at the moment. We do continue to work off the highway works, doing lots of drainage works in and around the area by Nichols Transport, and bringing in material when we can. The wet weather is having an impact on bringing in material to build up the embankments, but Jackson's are working where they can. Just an update on Key Street at the same time. We've completed the detailed design and we've gone out to procurement, but very aware of the M2 Junction 5 works, and we are still planning when we can actually undertake those works in line with the traffic management proposals that the M2 Junction 5 team are discussing. Hopefully once, as Dan said earlier, they hope to have the flyover in by summer next year, and hopefully that would mean that most of their significant traffic management is completed at that point, and it will make it easier for us to work around them on that. So we're currently expecting to start work in and around Key Street around May, but the traffic management proposals and how that would work still needs to be finalised. So that's a very quick update on both Grovehurst and Key Street. More than happy to take any questions that you may wish to come from the floor.
Right, thank you for that. Can I just ask, will you be following the media profile of our previous guest?
We obviously use Twitter and we use the KCC website. We don't quite have the same media profile that the M2 Junction 5 have, but we certainly have a full list of we're slightly I'm not going to say with slightly more localised than the M2 junction 5, that they're dealing with more regional traffic. We're dealing with more local traffic. So we do have a public liaison officer that is sending out regular newsletters and regular traffic management updates to all those that request it. So the information we do disseminate as fairly efficiently, we hope. Yeah, so that's where we currently and how we plan to advise people.
Yeah, thank you for that. Obviously, a good media campaign, and certainly the aerial shots are very helpful and gain people's interest. So if that could be followed, that would be good. Now I have Peter. I've got Mike. Anybody else? While I'm looking around, no. So Peter.
Thank you, Chairman. Just two comments actually. One is if they're considering that the speed might be a problem, quite simply, if you put, it won't cure everyone, but if you put a temporary average speed cameras in, that ought to sort that part of it out. The other one is somehow or other you've got to prevent all the cars, probably including me sometimes, although I didn't go that way, coming over the old Sheppey Bridge and then trying to filter into a single lane. That slows the traffic up. So somehow or other you've got to try and prevent the traffic from the old Sheppey Road, the old Ferry Road. Should be automatically signalled up to go up over the crossing rather than actually in the main carriageway, and don't allow people to do the cutting in, because that's what causes an awful lot of problems.
Yes, certainly speed limits is something we're looking at, especially if we've got to go on to or if we wish to pursue the 2 lanes through the junction approach. The risk assessment is suggesting that we would need to reduce the speed through there to 30 miles an hour, and a TASCAR or a mobile enforcement system would need to be installed as well. And fully understand your comment about the use of the old bridge. That is a challenge. We've looked and thought about options for encouraging traffic or dissuading traffic for using that route, but unfortunately there are just too many other reasons to use that route to actually just literally shut it down.
Thank you, Mike.
Yes, thanks, Jim, and thank you, Richard, for that helpful update. On the I'm going to go with the communication thing, really, because we all know what it is. We don't need to revisit the disaster that was. We just need to hope that it's going to be better next time, and that really, a lot of that will need to be properly communicated out as well. And I notice that Jackson's chairman have got Jackson Civils have got a very good mailing list. And they're also, I see tonight, they're setting up a business group and asking businesses to get in contact with them so they can have specific communications out to businesses. And
Yep.
So one question I would have, and I've got 2 questions. The first question would be to ensure that KCC is plugged into that. And if they can't share the data because of GDPR, then at least they send their communications to Jackson's and let Jackson's forward it out on their behalf. That would seem to be a way of shortcutting the GDPR, but ensuring that KCC got its message out to the widest possible group. Also, Richard will be aware, but you won't, Chairman, but I did speak with both the cabinet member and the director of highways at KCC, who have agreed that there should be some sort of public meeting in advance of these works going ahead, and hearing tonight that it's going to be the 7th when they're looking to put the traffic management on, that's going to have to be done in pretty quick order, if not before Christmas, then very quickly after the new year, before the works take place, so that it gives everybody the opportunity to put their questions and also have their voices heard before final decisions are made on some of this. So I'm looking forward to receiving a date back from the cabinet member as to when that meeting might be. and then we can make sure that as many people as possible, particularly the business community, and I'm thinking also in the schools and the buses, who are two sectors that were very badly hit.
Very much.
I mean, you know, the schools were hit, but actually it was the teachers and the children and the parents that were badly hit. The schools took some collateral damage in the various reporting numbers they have to send back to the DfE about late attendance or children not attending at all. So hopefully there's an answer to question 1 about sharing information more widely using Jackson's as a conduit. And I look forward to a public meeting and hope Richard's going to be there to explain and have his maps and his and everything else ready. Thanks, Chairman.
Thank you, Richard.
Certainly, we work with Jackson's. GDPR is a little bit of a challenge for us, but we share information with Jackson's. See, they're our contractor, and they are working for Kent. We employ Jackson's to do the public liaison. So yeah, we do share, and we work together to ensure that both our public relations team and the Jackson's team are putting out a consistent message. We tend to doing the press releases and storing the Jackson's newsletters on the web page, and we're making sure that any complaints and concerns are shared with Jackson's, so that people can go on those mailing lists to really get the direct message to those that want it as quickly as we can. The issue for me with regard to getting a date set up is I've got a briefing tomorrow with Simon Jones and Neil Baker to discuss where we are with traffic management. Having taken the traffic management off, it's the usual problem is that the struggle to actually get urgency in making decisions. We still have these 2 options, Mike, that we're looking at, and really I need to have this fixed before coming to a public meeting. So yeah, I need to get this moving as quickly as possible. We're getting close. The risk assessments have now been round two rounds of iterations, and it is just now working out the any other mitigation like the average speed cameras that would need to be incorporated. There is, because we've got the 50 mile an hour there are standard cameras out there that are used by the Kent Camera Partnership, but they wouldn't be suitable for the 30 mile an hour speed limit if that was be brought on. So there's a lot of work to be done very quickly still, and we're pushing that. And I'll have a chat with Mike and with Simon and Simon Jones and Neil Baker tomorrow, and we'll see when we can get something set up for you, Mike.
Thank you. Right, thank you very much, Richard. I have no further questions, so we shall move swiftly on to agenda item 10. Can I remind members this is for information only? So can I invite officers to just briefly whip through if there are any updates to the agenda items? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. No, nothing to add in particular. Probably the most likely to raise an eyebrow would be the one that's the one on the front page here from the resurfacing team, Appendix A, B2040 Crescent Road, to be programmed early 2024 for resurfacing of Crescent Road in Faversham. I understand that's likely to be carried out over 3 Sundays and is likely to be starting around the sort of second week or so of February next year. That's only a provisional date at the moment and hasn't been fixed in stone, but yes, that's the only one that I've got to add. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Peter and then I have Angela. So Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I've just got some comments to make actually on this is particularly to do with footpaths, and that's 3108 on page 26, but I've lumped them together. 3337 page 28, and 3469 on 32. That's the first part. This is all Chequers Road, and the footpath hasn't been completed. I was told that they couldn't complete it because they didn't have a spare metre between that and a tree. So I went and measured it, and they do. So I'm afraid the developers are pulling wool over somebody's eyes. So I'd like to actually meet somebody on site, if we can, on that. That's the Chequers Road ones. I've got one on page 29, which is 3423, which is the slips development down at the bottom to Elm Lane. I've had complaints from people, and it is quite dangerous. The curb doesn't line up properly, and it sticks out at the junction of Elm Lane. And the number of vehicles that hit that curb because it sticks out, so it does need some attention. The other one is on page 30, 3432. Again, this is on Scockles Road, and this is the developers again pulling the wool over people's eyes. There's a lot of houses are now occupied, and they haven't completed the footpath, which I understood that they should have completed the footpath and tarmacked it before any of the occupation took place. You see people walking in the road, which is, I mean, Scockles Road really does need some serious attention. But whether, you know, I've no problem at all in getting developers to actually pay for footpaths in front of their developments. I think that's the way it ought to go. So if we could look into those, I'd like someone to actually contact me sometime. That'd be great. Thank you.
Alan, did you want to briefly come back or just confirm that you'll be in contact with Mr. McDonald?
I'll just confirm if I can, please. I think that perhaps Justine Cook from our developments team might be the right person to, if there's going to be a site meeting, might be the right person. I think you've had some sort of early discussions with her about it, but I'll talk to Justine in the morning and see if we can try and set up some sort of site meeting as requested. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Angela.
Well, Chair, as you said, these are for information only items. I was going to propose that we note them. It's a bit late now, isn't it?
I have no further. So I'd second that for you. So duly noted. Thank you. Right, moving on to agenda item 11, progress update report. Could I ask officers to introduce the report or give any updates? Thank you.
Go first if you like, Chair. The one that's mentioned on here about Eurolink is our only real one of note. It was raised previously that there were a number of difficulties there outside Eurolink and with parking. And I have spoken to the team, and the team have made that note, the latest note that's on there, saying that there is a TRO application to install WLR lines to try and resolve the problem. And if members particularly do need to see, there is a plan available. I've got a copy of the plan that's been sent to me. So if people do want to see a copy of the plan, I can try and make that happen. They contact me. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I must admit, it was something that I commented on, as did my colleague, Councillor Mike Dendor. Certainly, with the queue of lorries and vans that are going into the scrapyard, I've actually seen other lorries that aren't going to the scrapyard stop, particularly if they're foreign lorries and driving from the left-hand side, not knowing that they should be overtaking and actually blocking the road. It is a real headache, and I do believe that there needs to be something a little bit more permanent and better to ease the flow of traffic there. That's just a comment from me. Yes, Councillor Mike.
Yes, thanks, Chairman. On that same issue, I remember some years ago, and others may, that this was a subject of a report that I think that went to the Regulations Committee at KCC, because the Regulations Committee have some authority and powers in respect of waste sites, of course, and the scrapyard is a waste site, and the queuing on the public highway into the waste site is something the regulations committee can take a view on and can take some action on. So I don't know whatever happened to that, but it may be helpful if highways could get in touch with the clerks at the regulation committee at KCC and see where that ended up. As I remember at the time also being told that with radios and other communications now in the cabs, that the site itself could be in contact with drivers to say there is a queue, so don't come down here yet, park up somewhere else, and then come down when we give you the nod, because we're not allowed to block the road. So it would be nice perhaps the officers go back to regulations committee and see what actually happened to all of that work, and if they need some help from members, then people like yourself, Chairman, or me can, or Mr. Dendell. I think it's in Mr. Dendell's
Mr. Dendell
patch, isn't it? That can follow that up. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. I have no further councillors wishing to speak. So can we note the report, please? Thank you. And item 12, this is just to note that the next date of the meeting will be the 4th of March 2024. Happy New Year to everybody. And I shall now formally close the meeting. Thank you very much for everybody who attended. Thank you.